本日は現在 MLB を揺るがしている野球賭博疑惑についてお届けします。現地でもトップニュースで取り上げ詳細に報道、現地放送を翻訳してお届けいたします。
The GM meetings are happening here all week. And in fact, the first image I'm hit with when we walk in last night, travel weary, was Heyman shuffling through the lobby looking for leads with a clipboard and a notebook. I'm sure John will join us at some point during the telecast. Also, the 2025 BBWAA Awards are starting tonight. Rookie of the Year. Program starts at 7 Eastern on MLB Network. The live announcement shortly to follow. And tonight's show followed by Manager of the Year.
The National League will be a little more of a challenge than the American League. I think the American League is a slam dunk.
I would agree with you on that.
I mean, Kurtz went off this year.
There's more than just the awards week. There's more than GM meetings. The inaugural MLB Open is happening at the end of the week. We're here to cover that. It's airing next week on TNT Turner. Also, the All MLB Awards this weekend. Harold, Lauren, D-Row, Greg, the whole gang there, and we have so much to get to this week. But we start with some news. JP Morosi, also on the Vegas junket. Good morning, friend.
Matt, Harold, great to be here.
We want to hit you with the news that we learned of yesterday, and it's pretty serious stuff here, so we want some explanations from you. Let's go to social media for the context on this. This from Jeff Passan. Cleveland Guardians pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz have been indicted by prosecutors in Brooklyn on a host of charges related to a scheme to rig bets on pitches thrown in MLB games. Ortiz was arrested in Boston earlier today. Clase is not currently in custody. And there are more tweets. This again from Jeff. The 23-page indictment against Clase and Ortiz lays out the alleged scheme for the pitchers to intentionally throw balls so bettors could wager on pitches to be balls or strikes. It started, prosecutors say, as early as May 2023 with Clase and later included Ortiz.
Yeah, Ortiz was traded to them last year, so he wasn't even part of the 2023 team.
More from Jeff. Prosecutors allege that Ortiz was paid $5,000 for throwing an intentional ball June 15th. Clase given $5,000 for facilitating it. They did it again, according to the indictment, June 27th. Payment for each on that pitch was $7,000 apiece. And finally from Jeff, Cleveland Guardians pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz face up to 65 years in prison if convicted on all charges, according to the Eastern District of New York, which outlined the case against Clase and Ortiz after indicting them on fraud, conspiracy, and bribery charges. These are very serious charges, carrying with them a very long sentence. We're not just talking about a lifetime ban from baseball here. This is much deeper than that, JP.
It is, Matt and Harold, and certainly we're just in the early stages of realizing, I think, in that sense, what the court proceedings will bring. I think the important information there was those indictments were announced yesterday. Again, Ortiz expected to appear in court today, and then Clase obviously is to be determined with regard to that. I think the big picture here is that there is, from an MLB perspective, the MLB investigation was opened last year at the time when initially the Ortiz suspension was announced and then subsequently the Clase suspension. That investigation remains ongoing. It is not a surprise to the extent that the federal prosecutors have subpoena power. They have more tools at their disposal to gather information. So while MLB awaits the closure of their investigation, clearly the federal case is proceeding. And I think on a larger level, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the ramifications thereof, this has to do with one very specific aspect of sports gambling, which is the prop bets. And I think that is something that has come up, whether it's the NBA case or others, to where in two different dimensions here. Number one, when there is a heavy amount of action on one particular prop bet, whether it's above, below, whatever it ends up being, that can get flagged because there is so much data out there as now these are legalized entities. So the information is substantiated. And the second piece of it is, again, there's the larger question of the place of prop bets going forward. I think that's probably the takeaway, Matt, and the discussion about the way that this could be carried forward.
Yeah, let's, before we get into anything else, let's go to the MLB statement on this. And this was put out by the league office. MLB contacted federal law enforcement at the outset of its investigation and has fully cooperated throughout the process. We're aware of the indictment and today's arrest, and our investigation is ongoing. There is a lot online about this. There's, there are people trying to kind of piece together video of the dates in question and the pitches in question. Harold, you know, I think one of the questions that needs to be asked here is from the perspective of the Cleveland Guardians. You know, the team is now going to be without two, certainly one really important piece. And there was rumor that Clase was going to be dealt at the deadline last year. That could have brought a nice haul for them. What from their perspective would you want to know?
Well, they've already dealt with it. You know, that's the one thing that because of the trade deadline, and this did happen during the season, they've already moved forward. And most clubs have a lot more information than we do. So I'm sure they were already planning on all this. They knew the indictments were coming. Once Major League Baseball starts investigating Rule 21 with betting, and you're setting guys off to the side, they're getting their proper just due with being paid and being investigated. But when you get this seriousness, I think the clubs and I think Major League Baseball and everybody starts to see the possibilities that are here. So anybody who's looking forward, thinking as most clubs would, are probably already starting to make their moves and their decisions. I would think that would be from that perspective. The other thing that hits me real quick is it worth it? You know, and that's my message to every baseball player out there.
Right.
It's like they threw away, if this is true, their careers. Done. They will never play baseball ever again. And I know they're trying to play in Venezuela right now, at least Class A is, and that's not happening because the Guardians have rights to that. But you've thrown away your whole major league, everything you've worked for to do, and the sums of monies that is being discussed here. It's not even.
Here's another thing too,
crazy
JP.
to think about.
The guardrails are in place here in terms of how the league receives affidavits from the legal operators in the country. And for the reason you just bring out, if there's something that looks like it's getting a ton of volume, they're going to look into it. And that's how gaming scandals in every sport get flushed out. Headache Smith, Arizona State in the 1980s, right? The college basketball scandal. There was crazy action on a weird Thursday night game against Oregon State with both teams out of it. They look into it, and sure enough, they figure things out. The same way this was figured out.
There's so much more information today.
Yeah, the guardrails are up. You know, the league is aware of stuff like this. So, but to follow up on what Harold said about the Guardians, the idea that they kind of learned life without these two guys at the break, is that how you see this as well?
Yes, Matt. Really, I think to make a baseball point, it is rather remarkable, and certainly a credit to Stephen Vogt, his staff, the players. They were still able to come back and win the American League Central. This happened right before the deadline. To your point, there was plenty of conversation in the month of July, and recall that the Class A news came out days before the trade deadline. So that was a really sensitive time when all this information came forward. It's important to point out from a business of baseball off-season perspective, these two players do not count against the Guardians' 40-man roster limit right now, because now the Guardians front office, the question comes, do they or have they moved on? They have no choice. They have to set their protection list. They have to figure out what they're doing with respect to the Rule 5 draft, player options, minor league protection. All those elements are crucially important just to the business of baseball. And because of the situation of the administrative leave, Clase and Ortiz do not count against that limit. And Matt, I think to the larger question, the Guardians may have to contemplate, if they were planning on getting prospects for Class A that obviously didn't happen, then they may have to make other moves this winter that they were not expecting to have to make.
Here's what I was going to say real quick, too. This was the premier closer in baseball.
Yes.
I mean, we're not
Hall of Fame track. Hall of Fame track.
And he's at the peak of his greatness right now. Yeah. And that's what the Guardians had at their disposal. And if they were to trade him, you get that kind of return. But if they were going to use him, he's a guy that was able to lead you to a run that could possibly get a team like this to the World Series. The thing that hits hard is a small market club like the Guardians. You do your work, you get your guys, and you cannot miss when you don't have the money or the resources that can all of a sudden cover this up. You can't miss. That's why it hurts and stings so deep with them.
And regarding his claim that he is innocent of whatever charges are out there, and there are a lot of them, there is a statement from his attorney. Emmanuel Clase has devoted his life to baseball and doing everything in his power to help his team win. Emmanuel is innocent of all charges and looks forward to clearing his name in court. So it remains to be seen where this lands. It's fascinating, disturbing, insert your own word there, and we'll certainly stay on this. JP, thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
You're going to stick around. You got some more with Lauren coming up, too. We're just getting started. First of 4 days of live coverage here in Las Vegas. A lot warmer than was advertised. But when we come back, JP and Lauren discuss the Japanese stars in Los Angeles and one of the key reasons why the Dodgers won the World Series, and is there more to come?
いかがだったでしょうか。今後の状況を注視していきたいと思います。本チャンネルでは今週から始まる表彰ラッシュもタイムリーにお届けしていきます。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。